Mara is the hidden gem of She-Ra's universe. She's a lot of things: Adora's predecessor, Raz's friend, and the reason the world is the way it is. We're initially introduced to her through anecdotes about the previous She-Ra who, as Swiftwind delicately puts it, "She went nuts!" But as we keep watching, we're shown there might be a little bit more to the story. Mara's is a tragedy, defined by acts of love, the legacy of which carries the show to its conclusion and cements the message of a better world through kindness. Mara is a first one. Those are the people she comes from. But she's more than her origins. Tasked with being She-Ra, she wields the power she's supposed to, methodically and obediently, at first. But when she realizes a darker side to her mission, she basically gets a choice. Behave as though she's an object on the She-Ra collision course, or as an agent who can do something different, even when this might have devastating consequences. To this end, one of She-Ra's overarching themes is that of self-definition, or the ongoing effort to make authentic choices in spite of external perception or expectations. I'm gonna talk about existentialism here for a moment, A, because I'm insufferable, and B, because it applies. So just bear with me. In existentialism, yielding to these pressures is referred to as acting in, quote, bad faith, or when individuals act inauthentically, adopt false values, and disown their innate freedom as sentient beings. In this model, She-Ra's power might be authentic identity, and the sort of protection the enabler of bad faith, the way it demands the wielder yield their freedom to choose in favor of their mission or destiny. Mara's story is one of reclaiming this choice, fundamentally, and in doing so, redefining what it means to be She-Ra and what it means to be Mara. And this reclamation of choice and selfhood is framed through the three significant relationships we see her have in the show, those with Lighthope, Raz, and Adora. Mara and Lighthope have a business relationship that, should it go as intended, will lead to Mara's weaponization and probable death. Lighthope is her mentor, and more than that, she's a hologram, ideally designed to be incapable of that tricky human emotion that might detract from her and She-Ra's mission. The first ones probably actually chose a hologram precisely for this reason, to remove empathy from the equation. But despite this, despite Lighthope's quirks and occasional confusion, Mara is nothing but warm towards her. The relationship is clearly meant to be transactional. Lighthope prepares She-Ra and tells her no more and no less than she needs to know, and She-Ra responds to her with the indifference that she would to words on a screen. And the key here is that this proposed relationship hinges on their mutual dehumanization, the end result being both follow orders, neither asks questions. When referring to both herself and to She-Ra, whether Adora or Mara, Lighthope frequently uses the word purpose.
This is your intended function.
Not purpose as in the thing you craft in your life by imbuing your actions with meaning, but purpose as in assigned role. They're both effective as tools of strategy if they're not people. It's the same basic idea as cadets in the Horde and Prime's clones. But Mara being Mara, relentlessly warm, compassionate, she gives Lighthope a nickname, which we see with Prime is also a significant thing about names and identity and recognition, you get the gist, and brings her flowers, just because they might liven the place up. And it sort of communicates this idea that people are as we treat them, right? If Lighthope is treated as nothing more than a hologram, then that's what she is. But Mara discovers Lighthope's humanity by going, hey, what if she's lonely? What if I were nice to the quirky purple pixels? She treats her as a sentient being, and she's not off base because, in fact, Lighthope responds positively to this, and the two of them actually become friends. And this friendship is real and significant enough that it proves a threat to the first one's mission, to the degree that Lighthope is forced to reprogram herself and erase the memory of the warmth of that connection. And still it sticks enough that thousands of years later, the memory of that friendship will be enough to reawaken Lighthope's own kindness towards Adora when she's being possessed by the same invasive force. When Adora and Lighthope struggle against their programming as parts of a machine, it's the memory of Mara's kindness that lets Lighthope break through just long enough for Adora to literally shatter the symbol of their mutual dehumanization. She-Ra is an obedient weapon insofar as she and Lighthope allow it to be. Their friendship is an act of mutual recognition. After being told who they are, it's basically just the two of them looking at each other and saying, I see you. So, for Mara, to humanize Lighthope is to humanize herself. Raz runs into Mara by mistake, boards the first one ship in a clear breach of conduct. Raz is peculiar and a bit hard to pin down, and Mara would have every reason to be annoyed with her. Instead, she doesn't just indulge Raz, she lets herself learn from her. A significant turning point is the scene with the boar, which I've talked about in another video, because it's such a perfect little microcosm of the show's themes. As her own act of love, Raz introduces Mara to the magic of Aetheria, which the show likens to ideas of both love and authenticity more than once. The first one sent Mara on a mission to literally weaponize this power, metaphorically weaponizing the ideas it stands for, the living organism that is Aetheria, and Mara's personhood itself. So, it's notably Raz, the Aetherian Mara connects with, who tells Mara that
She-Ra is not a sword. She-Ra is you.
Raz makes a pretty clear distinction between the power, the wielder, and the purpose it's channeled for. And I think this is maybe the turning point where Mara starts to see herself not as a soldier on a mission, but as a part of Aetheria. And when she decides to sacrifice herself, Mara very specifically says, "we," when referring to Aetheria. She's not an outsider or a conqueror, simply because she's chosen not to be. In connecting with Raz, Mara chooses authenticity, defining her own principles and allegiance. And in doing so, she restores dignity not just to herself, but to Aetheria, rejecting the assigned otherness of the planet and its residents when she aligns herself with it. And millennia later, Adora. Their first communication is a recorded one, melancholy and even having to be conveyed. The She-Ra mantle is not an enviable one, and this line honestly took me by surprise the first time I heard it.
It means I failed. I was supposed to be the last.
The whole show, Adora has struggled to balance her identity and choice with that of She-Ra, exacerbating a pattern that began long before with her traumatic upbringing. And without even meeting her, Mara's message gives Adora something she desperately needs.
You will be more powerful than they ever planned. I believe in you.
A vote of confidence from the only other person who's been in her shoes. Mara gives Adora something very human, a reassurance for something that otherwise I think would be very alienating. And when Adora is on the brink of mistaking herself for a tool, even one of good, Mara tells her something that applies to them both.
You're worth more than what you can give to other people. You deserve love too.
She offers Adora understanding from the other side of it all, and tries to impart in her what she learned in the worst way possible, that there is no glory in sacrifice. In her relationship with Adora is the hope that maybe in the future things could be different, and that hope taking the form of helping someone else. There's something bittersweet in all of this, and it's the question of Mara's legacy. Until we're shown the truth, we're told Mara was unhinged, violent, crazy, that for all the wonderful things we've talked about so far, her memory has been warped so unfairly. Mara states point blank that she knows she won't be remembered as a hero. She knows in this act she's not only giving up her life, but is pretty certain any memory of her in the future will be corrupted too. But she does it anyway. Not because it'll eradicate evil once and for all or anything like that, it's just the right thing to do. Mara and her squadron are also the ones that leave the failsafe. The slogan that Adora's been yelling ad nauseum every time she transforms isn't just a magic password to click the sword power on, it's an ode to the group of people whose last act was to try to help. This is Mara's legacy, and the thesis around which the entire show is basically built upon. Choosing our own authenticity in spite of outside expectations. Lighthope is expected to be a dispassionate hologram, one She-Ra cannot humanize or be humanized by. Mara and Lighthope's friendship rejects all of this. Aetheria is expected to be the target of a mission, foreign, a resource to harness. Mara refuses this by connecting to Raz and identifying herself with Aetheria itself. Adora is expected to reset Mara's rebelliousness, a fresh, ignorant person to fill the role Mara couldn't. But Mara's acts of love towards Adora, towards herself, towards Raz and Lighthope prevent this from being possible. However the mandate of her superiors has tried to extinguish it, Mara's humanity is in everything she's touched. Raz's line, "She-Ra is not a sword, She-Ra is you," may as well be, "Purpose cannot be assigned, it is yours to create." Mara's path, like Adora's, is about learning to distinguish the sword from themselves, making choices based on their own convictions, connections, and love. And a huge part of Mara's acts of love is the way she not only honors her own authenticity, but encourages it in others. The magic, as Raz puts it, of simply letting things be.
You cannot control magic. Magic simply is.
Loving the world around us enough to let it and others define themselves too. And I kind of like that it's not linear. That at a glance, Mara's sacrifice is for nothing, because Light Hope brings Adora through the portal to be She-Ra, the planet gets weaponized again, and Adora is an inch away from having to sacrifice herself again. That to a degree, these are things that repeat, that there are always forces that push back. But Mara makes her choice, and it matters then. It saves Raz, who passes on the message. It inspires her squadron, who leaves a failsafe. It's connection. It's that deep and that simple. It made the difference then, and it makes the difference now. And finally, as the show comes to a close, there's a nice little detail. Mara's theme from Hero plays again, through the years and the wars, reaffirming her legacy in this new, healing world. And yeah, I think she would be proud.